Hey, we're recording. This is Wednesday the 28th and Thursday the 29th for those 5th and 7th kids. Let's see if so there. Oh, we had half of iLearn this morning, the other half of our iLearn tiers tomorrow. Unless you're virtual, then you still have iLearn. I'm sorry. You have 8 hours of it or something like that on Friday. So I wish you the best of luck and good luck. The rest of us here, in theory, we have finished Outsiders because we're going to be talking about end of book. If you have not finished Outsiders, we're going to be spoiling the end of it. Hashtag spoilers. Because we're going to be talking about the people who died and the things that went into it and trying to help you guys out along those lines and stuff like that. If you've not read, it's not the end of the world. Just not going to stop having a conversation now. Your test unlocks right at. So as soon as class ends, your test unlocks for those of you who want to take it. Again, it is the thing connected to Friday. It is due by 3:30 or whatever it is on Friday. For those of you who are not done reading, take time to read. You have the time to get there. It is 35 questions. And so it's going to be 70 points because I have a lot of kids who are still trying to bump their grades up. And the only way to bump your grade up is to give you a big grade. So this is a big grade. My goal is if you read book, it should not be a hard test. That was what I was going for. I didn't put a whole lot of like tricky questions on there as much as just, did you read book? And then you should be good to go. If you've not read book, it'll probably be tough. If you only watch movie, well, you'll probably get a C or D, but if that's all you're aiming for, then go you. Because there's enough things that are the same between them. Book-wise, hold on to it till next week, and you will turn book back to me then, and I will take it from you, and then we will start our final book. My goal is I don't pick up book from you until you submit test, because I want you to be able to use book on test, because again, I don't hate you. If you've lost book, it does cost you $10 to get a new book. So just trying to let you know on that one. So hopefully you can find a book before then. Ethan?
So when people who have close contact,
Got a book.
One of my friend's son period.
Yeah, the window for iLearn goes like all the way through May. So as soon as they get back, they just have to spend the entire day doing it. Because I had other kids who were like, I'm just going to be on quarantine. That's fine. As soon as you come back, you just take iLearn. Unless you're on quarantine through 8th grade, you're going to take iLearn. So there is no avoiding it. Yeah, iLearn is like taxes. You don't get out of it.
You can only get out of it unless you move.
Yeah, or die. I mean, if you're trying to go through all your options. Owen?
Okay, how do I get them?
Unfortunately, you're going to have to go on Netflix, but not the streaming version, the one where they send you DVDs from like back in the 2000s, and then they can send you the DVD for it, or you can probably find some like illegal hacked website.
I would have said go to Blockbuster, but then they closed down.
Or you can go to Blockbuster like Jeriel did, but there's only one left, and it's in Oregon, so it's a bit of a drive. But if you're willing to commit, they probably have it still in stock. All right, and then, so yeah, I think they're down to the last 2 copies.
Journey at dawn.
Or I don't know, he said he petted the dog. It's hard to tell when Jeriel speaks sometimes. Then again, we have iLearn schedule again for tomorrow. It'll be the same thing, the short class periods, except for 5th period, which gets to be really, really long. And then Friday, we get to go back. For you guys, you already know what your Friday thing is for me. It's the test that you get a chance to take today. Blaze.
Period 4 and period 5 on the iLearn days are exactly 1 minute longer than normal.
Okay. I find that fascinating. And then, yes, Jerry, you are correct. I did not give a book to any of the virtual kids. You would know that on the days where you came, and I said you're going to have to do the digital version of the book, except some kids didn't come to class to hear that. I know. Not you, other kids. Let's see, blue sheets. I'm not missing him. I still have kids still haven't turned in the blue sheet yet. And so, but not in this class. I think you guys are good. Well, let's back up. Those of you who are here in person are good to go. A lot of my virtual kids have still not turned it in. They're just sitting on that big fat 0. But those of you who are here, you're not standing. So go you. You're not missing a thing for me. I think actually, did you guys just applaud yourselves for not being lazy?
Yeah.
I'm a human. I live today. Oh, tomorrow I'm going to try again. I'm so proud of you guys. Sorry, I'm feeling a little sassy today. Just a little. I'll get better. Yeah, I think the rest of you guys are good to go. The only kids missing things are the kids who don't come. Those of you who are here, you're good to go. What a happy day. All right, and then it's there. And this, we're not doing today because the shorter class period. Next week is our last week to do it. And so then I'm going to officially lock it in, take pictures of the winning kids, hand out the prizes and stuff like that. So however it finishes at the end of next week will be the last time to do it. Plus, we only had, 9 kids who beat 30 seconds. So for those of you who are still wanting B points, if you can do it in 30 seconds or less, you still have a chance of getting points. But that's up to you. But next week is our last week, and then we're finally going to wrap this up and be done and hand out our final prizes and find out if Zach gets to stay up there or if some kid bravely beats you. Speaking of bravely beating a child, let's talk about outsiders. All right. So I'm not reading with you today. We're not doing rewindy bits. We're going to go straight into new bits. One, I found a meme for you because apparently kids like memes. And so this one apparently connects to the book, which made me smile. The kid showing up late. Well, I mean, this, of course, only works if you have these things called emotions and like actually care about some of the characters. You know, for some people, Johnny dying was a big thing. And they're like, oh, for others of you, you're like, Johnny died? Spoiler from a thing that you were supposed to read. And then for other kids, it was that Dally guy dying. But I mean, Dally started off as a jerk and he became kind of like that lovable heartthrob, and then he became that dead kid.
Bobby.
I'm assuming you probably didn't cry over Bob, but maybe some of you guys, like, all deaths are important. But it's up to you. What a random thing to yell. Again, if you need this, this should be on Remind to try and help you out from there. So that one. Nice. Let's discuss things. So with the Rumble, this is where I left you off as we were getting into that whole rumbly thing. If the Greasers win the Rumble, what did the Socias have to agree to? Get out of, well, not the whole town, but get out of their neighborhood. No more hunting down the Greasers. It's all over. If the Socias win, what happens?
Greasers should happily let them jump them.
Basically, yeah. We get to beat you up and you can't complain. So the Socias like, if we win, we get to just randomly hunt you down and beat you with a stick. And so that's why they sort of their agreement going into it. Of those two sides, which one has a bigger need to fight and defend themselves? Yeah, which is why the Greasers win. Because they're like, I'm fighting for life or death. And the Socials are like, I'm fighting because I like hitting people. And so usually the not wanting to die beats I enjoy hitting people, which is why the Greasers ended up winning that whole battle. Let's see. And who steps up for the Rumble for the Greasers? Derry. Now, on that one, why do they pick Derry? Yeah, I mean, it's just like in the Avengers. You send the Hulk out there to start the battle for you, because then if you're like, Derry, smash! And all the other Socials are scared, you have nothing to worry about, because then they're all like, oh, you got big Derry Hulk on your side. But that's not what happens, because who steps up for the Socials? One, did not expect you to remember his name, so go you guys. And two, yeah, it was basically, and how does Derry know Paul? Yeah, that was more the fact that they went to high school together. That was like his best friend back in the day. And Derry always thought he could beat him up, but apparently friends aren't supposed to fight each other. But now when they also lined up before they started, neither one of them wants to start the fight because it's Derry and Paul just like staring at each other, like, who wants to punch each other first? And apparently punching your old friend in the face is not what most people go for. So most people, you guys, I know all the time, how you don't just punch each other, but Derry and Paul are just standing and staring at each other, doing that weird KCM circle thing until we get our surprise guest spot. And that's when Dally comes running in, and he's like, "You can't start a Rumble without me." And Derry turns, and he was like, "Who's yelling?" And that's when Paul goes, "I'm a wussy," and punches him right in the face. Because again, if you're stepping up against the Hulk, you probably want to try and do the wussy haymaker and he's not looking. Unfortunately, does it knock Derry out? No. Much like the Hulk, you're like, smack. The Hulk's like, "Rrr." He's like, ah, and it starts on. And you're like, oh, I'm ready for a choice. And he kicks him up and he was like, puny sauce, and flips him back and forth. There you go. Thank you for picking up my Avengers reference on that one. And then smashes him back and forth. So normally, since Ponyboy is the youngest, he gets to have a punch buddy, the guy who helps him fight. Who's his normal punch buddy? Normally Johnny. Why is Johnny not there? Well, he's not dead yet. You're a little too eager on that one. He's still in the pre-death part. But yes, he's definitely crippled, which slows down your fighting ability. Now, if they committed, you could have just picked him up and swung him around. You could still be involved in the fight, like, just swing his arms around. But
Apparently they don't.
They should have used his death body.
He's not dead. He's paralyzed. There's a difference.
I know, they should have rescheduled.
I don't think that's how rumbles work.
And then Gary wouldn't have got killed, and then they would have either.
Down.
They won.
Gary's still alive. Justice for Dally. And then who helps him out now? Why is Dally considered like weaker in Dally? Because when he shows up, he only has the other arm's all bandaged. He's like, I got one arm. So yeah, that's why he has the one arm. Yeah, he really only has one arm, so it's just going across. So he and Ponyboy together form like one whole greaser, and they're like, form up greaser. They form like a little superpower. Let's see, which side manages to win? Yeah, because they're fighting for their lives, which apparently is a bigger reason for fighting than just I like to hit people. Ooh. So Pony goes to hospital after the rumble. I believe we're starting to figure out why, because you guys are all excited.
Got kicked in the head.
Well, one, that's why he should have gone to the hospital. And so realize it, he should go to the hospital because he gets kicked in the head. For those of you who play sports and you take a blow to the noggin, what happens to you? Yeah, the concussion and brain damage thing.
You got concussion.
That's what Ponyboy has. That's not why he goes to the hospital. Why does Dally take him to the hospital? Yeah, well,
Bad.
yeah, I don't think they can keep him alive. But they can keep him, at least be there with
Keep
him.
him motivated.
And that's why when on the way to the hospital, the policeman, yeah, they're excited about death. I feel the same way. The policeman pulls him over on the way, and Dally's like, act like you're hurt. And he's like, dude, I got kicked in the head. He's like, I don't have to act. And then we get to the hospital, and then we get to the whole running down. Oh, so I'm not going to reread the scene to you because I don't want to get all weepy and emotional. But that's where the whole Johnny passes on, and he's turned to Ponyboy, and he's like, stay gold, Ponyboy, stay gold. And then he's gone. And so who does he not want Ponyboy to turn out like? Yeah, he's like, don't tell Dally, but Dally kind of hates everything. So I want you to be like, be a happy person. So stay gold. I don't think Dally has any gold in him. And it turns out Dally doesn't have any gold in him. Because Johnny was his gold. And what happened to Johnny? Yeah, again, I'm not great at math, but Johnny equals gold. Johnny minus Johnny equals no more gold. And so that's when Dally does not take it well at all. So ooh, speaking of Dally not taking it well, what does Dally choose to go do? We all have had that moment where you're really sad about your friend, and the only way you can help solve it is by robbing a store. And what weapon does he use?
A gun.
There you go. Ooh, I forgot about this part. Because question that a kid asked earlier is like, why does Johnny die? Realize you don't die from third-degree burns all the time. You can live through it. Nor do you die from being paralyzed. People are paralyzed all the time and don't die. So like, but so Johnny's paralyzed and third-degree burns. Does that kill him? And the answer is no. This is going to require you to tap into your movie and TV knowledge. So whenever you see like that person gets into like a car wreck or a bad accident, and like the doctors come in like, he's really close. We're hoping he's a fighter. If he's really strong, he can pull through. And they're all like, pull through, Bobby, pull through. And you're like, oh my God, he's gonna die. And he goes like, oh, and he comes like, oh my God, he made it. That's because he pulls through. You have a reason to want to live, and you pull through those injuries. Does Johnny have a reason to live?
No.
Yeah, that's the issue. So his body is having problems, and instead of like fighting through it, he's like, so if I fight through all of this, what's the best case scenario?
I go to jail.
Well, going to jail, might be the best case. Yeah, you go home to parents who beat you and hate you. And he's like, that's the good part? What's the bad part? Jail. Oh, those are my two options. Is there a third option? You give up and die. And so that's why he just sort of like, yeah, he just sort of lets it happen. Owen.
I think that's why he was smiling in the fire. Because I think he kind of knew it was coming.
I can see that.
He was,
well, and he's never had much of a chance to do, I think Johnny's a good person, but never had a chance to do good things. And I think him throwing kids out windows was his moment. He was like, I'm doing good things. I like this.
and maybe he would have gone on to do more children throwing out windows, but then he didn't get a chance to do that. Right? I mean, respect. Ooh, how did Tony get to the hospital? Dally. Why can he not use Dally after hospital? Dally ran away. So how does he get home from hospital?
He walks and then a stranger picks him up.
So here's where I expected the book to take a different direction, because just so you're fully picturing this scene, he just watched his best friend die in the hospital. He's suffering from a concussion. Little on the loopy side, he's walking down the middle of his street back and forth, trying to get home. Random man in car shows up and goes, "Little boy, would you like to get in my car?" And Tony goes, "Yes, I would." And I'm like, oh, this book is going to take a turn. And then he gets in the car and the man just takes him home. And I'm like, what?
That would never happen.
And, yeah, and he bleeds on the guy's seats. I was like, he's like, sheep. So apparently there are some good people in the world that pick up random little boys in the middle of the night and just take them home and let them bleed on seats and nothing creepy happens. And we're like, well, I didn't see that one coming. But it's okay. Let's see. You guys did. So the whole Dally thing.
Commit suicide. That's what
Goes
he
to the
does.
gas station, runs from police,
Yeah.
and then pulls out a gun at them. They get shot.
Again,
In other words,
try not to be quite so excited when talking about the death, but it's okay. So with the death of Dally, we talked about the fact that he goes to the grocery store?
That was not you.
grocery store, uses the gun. But the thing is, when he does that, does he know he's going to die? I would say for the most part, he feels,
He wants
but
to die.
before he does it, he calls his friends. So my question is, why call your friends if you know you're going to die?
So they can watch him die.
And that's where, now, that's the right answer, but it's like, why would you do that to your friends? That's the part I want to cover. Owen,
I know why.
why?
I think he wants them to know his pain on how himself trying to die.
You're on the right track. Dally is one, a boy, and you're right, he's not a bad person, and he's not a bad person, a boy, and a greaser, and not good with emotions. And so he's trying to share emotions with his friends, and he's not used to speaking emotion language. So he wants them to feel what he's going through and understand this thing. But at the same time, he needs to die in the coolest way possible, because legit, he's a greaser. He's like, I can't just like die normally because that's not very cool. And so the coolest way for him to die,
Get shot.
exactly. So that's why he wants to make sure all of the greasers, when they see it in the paper, they're like, oh, that Dally Winston, he's so cool. But he wants his friends to know, I didn't do it to be cool. I did it because of Johnny. So we get to this scene. Let's back up. When he does the whole robbing thing, what time of day is it? So middle of the night. He goes into the empty lot next to the house. It's a huge empty lot. He could go anywhere in this empty lot. Where does he run to?
The light.
Directly underneath the light where you can see him. So he runs directly underneath the light, waits for the popos to show up, who are then coming behind him, and pulls out his gun that he knows is not loaded, but the police don't know is not loaded. So when he pulls out his gun, they're like, we have one of those too. And then he's like, aha, pew, pew, pew. And they're like, oh, we can do that too. And they pew, pew, pew back at him. When he does his fake pew, pew, they do their real pew, pew. And their pew, pew beats this pew, pew. And so that's when he dies. And that's when his friends watch him die. And they're like, what would you? And again, this is his way of telling his friends goodbye, because he is not good at emotions. And so this is his way of doing it. Right after he dies, what happens to Pony Boy?
He falls.
Passes out and goes crazy. Here's why he passes out and goes crazy. From the opening scene in the book, on the way home from the movie theater, to that moment, how much time has passed? Exactly 1 week. From the beginning of it to this moment, all of that's in a week. Now, hang on. Prepare to buckle up, because here's what's happened to him in 1 week in case you've lost track of things. On his way home from the movie, he gets jumped by a bunch of soldiers who hold a knife to his throat and try to kill him. The very next day, he then goes to the movies with his friends and he sees a bunch of hot girls and flirts with them, and the hot girls flirt back. which becomes like one of the best things ever. He then, on the way home from there, gets stopped by their boyfriends, breaks a bottle, then gets ready to get into a fight so one of them saves him. Walks home from there, gets slapped by his older brother, and runs away from home. From running away from home, he goes to the neighborhood park. From there, gets confronted by a whole bunch of socios. From there, they drown him to the point where he passes out. Wakes up to find out there's a kid dead lying right next to him, and his best friend did the killing. Runs away from home again, twice in the same night. Jumps on a train for the first time. Goes to a random church sitting out in the middle of nowhere, lives on bologna and cigarettes for 5 days straight, then goes to eat Dairy Queen, which I love Dairy Queen, but after 5 days of bologna and cigarettes is a little bit on the rough side. From Dairy Queen goes back to church is on fire, saves little kids by throwing them out of the windows. Okay, that's a high point. And then from there, burning church, falls on top of him, gets slugged in the back to the point where he passes out, goes to the hospital, finds out at the hospital that he's going to get separated from his brothers because he got in trouble with the police, which apparently is a big fat no-no. From there, spends the next day or so trying to recuperate from this whole getting in trouble thing, going to a rumble, in the rumble, getting kicked in the head, getting a concussion while he's there, going to the hospital, watching his best friend die in front of him, stay cold, pony boy. From there, walking home, getting picked up with a random guy who turned out to not be a creeper. And after getting picked up by random not creeper, gets home, gets a phone call from that random friend from Dally, goes out and watches Dally get shot in front of him. Any one of those things would have made your Snapchat story. He had all of that happen to him in 1 week.
Except maybe for the Dairy Queen.
Yeah. My daughters have Dairy Queen. They put that in their Snapchat stories too. That is a lot for the human brain to take. His brain shuts down. At some point, your brain just goes, no, and he passes out. And then when he wakes back up, his brain is trying to recover from all of this trauma, and that is a lot of trauma. And this is where he goes into this weird sickness where it takes him like a week, and he gets in this argument with Randy. The argument with Randy is Randy, the social comes back, and he's like, hey, we're going to go to court and say that it was not Johnny's fault and not your fault, that we were the ones that did all these bad things. That's why Johnny stabbed Bob, which gets weird because how does Pony Boy respond to the idea of that? He goes, Johnny didn't stab Bob. I stabbed Bob. And he's like, nobody. I was there. I watched it happen. Here's what's going on in Pony Boy's brain. He is so traumatized. He's trying to find his happy place. His happy place is his best friend not being a murderer and not being dead. But in order for that to happen, someone else had to murder Bob. There is only one other greaser there, that being Pony Boy himself. So imagine how messed up your life is. If your happy place is, I wish I was a murderer. If I was a murderer, life would be better. That's where Pony Boy is. And so that's how messed up he is at that point. The last thing I want to hit to jump forward, end of the book, he's failing out of school. And at that point, his teacher says, hey, if you'll write me an essay about what's important to you, you can pass. What does he write his essay about? This whole week, which is why the very end of the book is the first page of the book. He wrote this as his essay about what was important to him. So it becomes this whole big circle, which is why throughout the book, he has that weird tone. Actually, yeah.
Wait, so that whole book happened in all 1 week?
Your test is now officially unlocked. You can take it. It is due tomorrow at the end. Do not stand in my doorway. Home children, we are done with you. Welcome to Stabby Town, the book.
Hey, I have a question. So that whole thing happened in 1 week? Like the whole book?
Well, 2 weeks, because after the passing out part, there's like another week.
Okay.